What does talent mean to you guys? What do you think about when I say talent? This is more of a mental health discussion, I think. Talent doesn't exist. Skill, however, does. Hard work clears talent. Me? Oh, I don't know. I don't think I'm very particularly talented. So I think I'm seeing a little bit of a consensus here. Everyone thinks, you know, talent does not exist at all. Practice is what matters, right? Hard work is definitely more important than talent. I see that everyone thinks that hard work is more important than talent, which I agree. Do you think it exists at all? Is there nothing distinguishing you between one person and the next? Could they potentially be more talented? What does talent really mean? So this is what I think about talent, right? The way I see it is it does exist, and in fact, it can make quite a large difference. I believe that someone who is quote-unquote talented, they still have to put in a lot of hard work, but it's possible that they can pick up concepts faster and that their absolute peak, if there is a peak in art, might be higher than someone who doesn't have talent. But if they don't put in the hard work, it will not amount to anything. So because this is my next question, if you guys knew for a fact that you are less talented than someone, how will that make you feel? Like, you know that another person, maybe someone close to you, works harder than you at art, say, because since we are artists, how does that make you feel? I think it can be a rather large advantage, yeah. Inspired, don't care, because I was looking at my old YouTube, other YouTube video where I was talking about finding the fun in art, right? And a common topic I saw in the comments was that people felt discouraged because they were like, I feel like I'm working really hard, but I just don't have talent. I was thinking, okay, so I feel like you guys have healthier mentals than I used to, because I think I used to be very unhealthily attached to the idea of talent and being the best. Let me describe how I used to feel. I don't think a lot of people will relate to this because the way I used to feel was actually extremely extreme and maybe even pathological. I don't know. It was really messed up. But I had this insane need to be like the best at something. Like not very good. I needed to be literally #1 in existence, which, you know, is obviously impossible. All right. Like it's literally not possible. There are a lot of people out there in the world. I cannot be #1. And the fact that I could not be #1 left me like in a horrible depression all the time. The gifted kid situation. Yes, I used to be a gifted kid. That's probably my issue, right? You feel like you're a shonen protagonist and you need to defeat them all. Yeah, exactly. That was me. So am I the only one who thinks like that? Because am I uniquely messed up? Like, did you need to be #1 or at least unrealistically good? I literally needed to be #1, which meant that if I wasn't #1, I was basically failing, which meant that I basically failed at everything I ever done in my entire life. That was my mindset for the majority of my entire life. Because when you're like a teenager in high school or something, or primary school, or wherever you were gifted at, I feel like it's pretty easy to be in the scenario where like you're a big fish in a small pond. Like, how big is your class? How big is your school? Not very big. So being #1 is like not that hard. And then you enter the real world and yeah, that's not happening, by the way. I spent a really long time trying to overcome that feeling of pathologically needing to be the very best, like a Pokemon trainer. I was kind of thinking for someone like, I was trying to think like, what's a good response to someone who is saying like, I don't think I can learn art because even though I work really hard, I'm just untalented, so I know it will amount to nothing. So the question is then like, why do you need to be good at things? Is that really so important? I mean, yes, if you're hanging everything on that and you need to be a professional, but I think that's another discussion to have. If your livelihood depends on it, then of course you would feel some stress about it. But then a lot of people saying this are people who like have just started and they're doing it as a hobby. We're stupidly taught from childhood that being bad at something should equate to your self-worth. Yeah, right? You better be good at it, or else what good are you? Yeah, well, first you would ask why you want to be better, because for you want to tell your story with art and put down the image you see in your head. I think there's a difference here between being better and being the best. Trying to strive for more, trying to be better than who you were yesterday, that's always a good thing. Trying to be the best, I feel like is a trap. When it comes to art, you think that isolation plays a huge part in that mentality and also comparison still in high school, and that has been your biggest issue, and those around you really show that comparison and isolation is crazy and the root of all evil. Yeah. So it's not like I'm saying that you shouldn't look at other people's work to avoid comparing with you. I feel like looking at other artists is in fact a really healthy and good way to grow, but only if you're able to do it without negatively comparing yourself, right? I feel like it's better to feel inspired when you see good artwork rather than threatened, because I used to feel threatened and angry and bitter whenever I saw art that was better than mine. So basically all the time, I was always bitter. I was always angry. And that's a miserable way to exist, honestly. And again, I feel like there is a bit of difference between those of us who are drawing for fun. I mean, I'm still not really a professional artist. I don't really have a goal necessarily. Obviously, there's a lot more pressure if you're hanging your entire livelihood and ability to pay rent on this skill of yours. But that's something for another time, I think. Who determines what's the best art? I didn't even think this through. I was so far from being number one, I didn't even think to figure that out. You never felt anger at someone else's art? I wasn't really, back then I wasn't angry at the other person. I was angry at myself for not being able to do it. Especially with comparing at where you're based off another artist's skill and age. That made me especially mad. I mentioned this before, but measuring someone's age, an age is like a terrible way of trying to determine how much work someone has put into being an artist, right? There are people literally half my age, I think, that are far better of an artist than I ever will be, frankly, and I've accepted this. That's okay, because I no longer have to be the best. To be honest, it was so silly, but when I realized that I don't actually have to be the best, it was the most freeing feeling I ever had. It was like a giant weight was lifted off my shoulders that I don't have to be the best. I don't even really have to be good. What's important is that I get as good as I can be, and that's just like a personal goal thing, but in the grand scheme of things, who cares? Because I picked up art like way later than most people. So I was in my 30s and there are 21-year-olds that are like way better than I am. But they started drawing probably when they were like 10 or something. One thing with age is that 16-year-olds now have nearly full art courses worth of tutorials online for free. Yeah, exactly. Back in my day, we just had lousy how to draw manga books that looked like this. So like, you know, how are you supposed to learn? I didn't even know you were able to study stuff. Measuring by age is so harmful, even to the people who are young, because they also eventually grow up and have to live with not being young and talented. Exactly, right? I mean, at some point you're like, wow, you draw really well for like a 15-year-old or something, and people are all saying that and you feel good. I used to use that crutch because I used to draw when I was younger, but like I said, at some point I grew up and I was no longer good for like a 19-year-old, so I just stopped. I just quit drawing because I wasn't that talented kid anymore. Needing validation from others is very unhealthy. I'm gonna have a small correction here. I feel like since with art, it's something where we inherently want to communicate with others. We're not drawing purely for ourselves. I don't know about you guys, but personally, I'm not like a hermit who can sit there in their room and draw and then never show anybody their work. I'm not saying post on social media. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying I have to show my work to somebody. Doesn't have to be a lot of people, but someone. And I think we all deserve that someone, which is why I always encourage finding art friends and smaller art communities so we can have that someone instead of like posting it on social media, which can feel like posting into a void. I think, you know, growing together and getting some validation from some people is good, but purely relying on validation will always be a little bit risky, yeah. I'm not that old. I mean, realistically, in terms of like reality, like real life, IRL, I don't know if you guys are much in the habit of touching grass, but usually in the outside world, I'm considered pretty young still. It's just on Twitch, everyone calls me an auntie or a grandma, so it depends on where you are, right? We were talking about talented children, but I think we mostly wrapped up that conversation, right? Like the pathological need to be the very best can be really harmful to artists, and basically I think we found that a lot of like so-called talented children are often stuck with this mindset, and I was one of them. And if I knew I couldn't be the best at something, I often wouldn't even try. That resonates. You avoided specializing in more illustration, concept art related things in university because you couldn't stand competing and not being the best. You realize that despite your constantly shifting interests over the time, your desire to art has always been there. So you're trying to persevere this time. ADHD does make things difficult. I suppose I may have had things quite a bit easier than everyone else because despite all my neuroticisms, I am in fact one neurotypical queen. I have the ability to focus. It's magic. I can talk to other people, no problem. So I guess I got that going for me. Here's some advice you took ages ago that helped you improve and keep going as an artist. Do what you will feel will make you happy as an artist in whatever pursuit you got. It's what matters most, and if you learn something out of it, even better. Oh, I completely agree with that. I really like telling people that the most important thing in art is finding what you enjoy, is finding your fun. I don't like illustration, so I don't do a lot of it because I don't enjoy it. Yeah, it's okay, I guess. I recently learned that rendering and shading is is okay. But I wouldn't really say I have an affinity for it. I like sketching. You thought I was young till you watched the stream? Why? Is it because I know the lingo of the youth to camouflage myself? I can like stick up my gap with a Rizzler if that's what you need me to do, but nah, I'm old.